Hey, I'm Zach.
And I'm Jesse.
Welcome to our series on Elon the Disruptor.
We're always so busy on this channel reporting on Elon's incredible enterprises these past few years that we realized we sometimes lose sight of the big picture.
So we're going to show you how Elon could very well be the biggest disruptor in human history. I think there are many reasons why we can't see all the disruptions that Elon is heading up today. The first is that we are in the middle of them.
Most of us have never reflected on what it feels like to be in the middle of a disruption, even though many of us have actually lived through a few.
If you're 30 years or older, then you may remember that to call a friend used to involve this.
Until about 1985, whenever you made a phone call, you were attached to a physical wire and you could never stray far from it, no matter how hard you tried.
This hardwired telephone technology was patented in 1876, so it was the dominant technology for over 100 years.
People had been born with a wired phone in their house, people had grown up with wired phones, and people had died knowing nothing but wired phones.
Then along came the wireless phone in the early 1990s, and it was a game changer, remember?
You could walk around the house, around the office. In fact, you can even walk a ways out of your house and still be on the phone.
And then in the late 1990s, we started seeing people walk around with these things.
Yes, they were big. Yes, they were expensive. But they were a mobile phone. And that made them sought after. I mean, you could literally walk anywhere and communicate with anyone.
Sure, not everyone had them in the 1990s, but by the year 2000, most of us did. They weren't smart yet, but these cell phones were a disruption. They disrupted the old landline phone.
Here's a chart of cell phone sales. Take a look at how it took off. Within a few short years, cell phones displaced the traditional landline telephone market. The old technology was replaced.
Now, are there landlines still around today? Yes. Are there still some rotary dial telephones? Yes. A disruption doesn't mean that the old technology is necessarily completely gone entirely.
But it does mean that the majority of people have moved on to the new technology, leaving the old technology pretty much to collectors' shelves and yard sale bargains.
You see, if you're at least 30 years old, then you know what the cell phone disruption feels like.
Now that we are completely unattached from the wall, now that most of us have cell phones, we can start to see new possibilities that just didn't occur to most of us when we were attached to our walls.
Only a very small number of people have the imagination to see what the world could look like, and even a smaller number of people can see that future possibility and make it into a reality.
The second problem most of us have, seeing all the disruptions that Elon is making happen, is that most people don't see anything much happening.
You might notice a supercharger location got installed nearby.
You might remember seeing a red roadster launched into space.
You might have seen something about a boring tunnel party.
But these don't affect your everyday life, because let's face it, there are still gas stations, there's still traffic, so what are all these disruptions we're talking about?
So going back to the cell phone analogy, when you first started noticing business people walking around with their blocky, expensive cell phones, how did that affect your daily life?
It didn't. Your life didn't change. You didn't have one of those new mobile phones. You still had to find a phone booth to make your calls when you were away from the office.
But your life was about to change. A few years later, you would get a cell phone. Your life was about to be disrupted. You just didn't know it yet.
And the third problem with seeing all the disruptions that Elon is causing is, well, it just doesn't seem possible. It just seems strange.
We humans are practical creatures. We base our thinking and our decisions on our own experiences. I mean, that's how we learn after all.
We experience something and then we commit it to memory. And then later, we draw on that memory to decide what to do about something new we face.
For instance, what did you learn from the last time you needed to buy an automobile?
You probably went to your local car dealer.
The things that Elon Musk is talking about don't make sense with the reality we know. I mean, he's telling us to buy his cars online? No more dealers?
And his cars don't use gas or diesel? They have batteries that get powered by electricity? You may have never experienced this before, so that sounds strange.
Staying away from strange things has largely protected us humans for thousands of years.
Those berries look strange. I'm not going to eat them.
Staying away from strange things has historically been the safest option. Go with the tried and true, and you can't go wrong, right?
I guess. But how did that work out for countless companies that stayed away from the strange?
In this series, we're going to deep dive into the industries that Elon is currently disrupting and show how big that disruption will be.
We'll show you how big and how important these disruptions are and how they will affect everyone on the planet.
I hope you'll join us. Thanks for watching. Now you know.
Thanks so much for watching Now You Know. We work hard to bring you videos about things that we think you'll find useful, but we need to know from you what you want to see, so leave your comments below. Also, don't forget to go over to our Patreon page, where for as little as $1 a month, you can watch our Patreon bonus story every week on Tesla Time News. Thanks again. We'll see you soon.